Informatics Institute of Technology has earned a wide reputation of being a pioneer in British higher education in Sri Lanka and the country's premier IT and business campus. With over 30 years of experience, IIT is an award-winning campus which has bagged many accolades for innovation in local and international competitions such as Microsoft Imagine Cup, National Best Quality Software Awards, Asia Pacific ICT Alliance APICTA Awards, Google Summer of Code, British Council HSBC Youth Enterprise Awards, eSwabhimani and Samsung Digital Native Awards. IIT is affiliated to University of Westminster, United Kingdom, and Robert Gordon University, Aberdeen, United Kingdom, and offers foundation, undergraduate, and postgraduate programs. The guest speaker we have with us today, Professor Piyanjali De Souza, is a professor in clinical psychology at Faculty of Medicine, University of Columbia. She was a pioneer in inaugurating the first ever Sri Lankan Masters in Clinical Psychology at University of Colombo. She has published over 100 publications related to the field of psychology, and she is a key member in all strategic level national committees and institutes where advice related to mental health is needed. Her main research and academic interests are mindfulness-based psychotherapy, child abuse and child-directed violence, clinical psychology, and cross-cultural aspects of psychology. IIT warmly welcomes Professor Piyanjali De Souza, who will be conducting an interactive webinar on the topic of how to be happy during lockdown. I hand over the proceedings to Professor Piyanjali.
All of us here, gathered here today, we know why we are here, because currently our earth is going through a pandemic. And I suppose with anything, including a pandemic, life can be feel difficult and challenging because it's not something that we look forward to, isn't it? So it is really essential that universities where youth get together, such as yourself, offer opportunities and strategies of how we can protect our mind until we tied to this time. Therefore, let's see why we are meeting today. We are meeting today because we want to learn ways in which we can cope and manage ourselves during this very unique situation we find ourselves in our lives. Because if we can protect our mind during this time, when we come out of this challenge in the future, our minds would also be stronger. So we won't only be strong now if we have strategies to protect ourselves, but when we come out of it, we'll also be grown thanks to these challenging times we are going through. So that's why it's really important that organizations, institutions, universities offer these strategies to youth so that they can protect themselves. So let's have a look at what kind of psychological impact that people can get in a pandemic situation. And the first and the very most important point that I want to tell you is that not everyone would have these signs. I have met many people who do not have any of these signs. Some people have it to very mild. Some people have it moderately. Some people have it very severely. Some people have it on certain days and some people have it on other days. So it's not that all of us need to go through these difficult emotions. But let us look what these difficult emotions are that human beings, including youth, could go through. We can feel anxious. We can worry about our future and what could happen to our country and the world. If this anxiety and worry becomes much more, we call it fear. So anxiety, worry, and fear are in the same spectrum, but in increasing levels. Some people can feel irritable and angry, particularly if you are living in closed spaces. So for example, some of us who find ourselves in, in apartments or very close-knit units where there are many people around us all the time, we can feel irritable. We might have had irritability issues before also, but it might become more now. Some other indicators will be loneliness. So some people might feel very lonely. They might be in the habit of meeting their friends at university, going out with friends and studying together. Their usual routine is changed. Especially at you get up in the morning, you either study, you get to go to the university, you meet friends, you study, then you go out to see a film, you meet up with a friend, you might have a girlfriend or a boyfriend. So all of these routines are suddenly abruptly stopped for our own benefit, of course, but because it's stopped, you might also feel quite lonely. Then, if you have family members or friends from whom you have been separated because maybe they're in a quarantine center, you might feel separated from them and you might feel a sense of loss. Now, other than that, there are certain groups of people who might be specially subjected to difficult emotions, and we need to really acknowledge them. You might be one of them who's listening to this talk, or you might know people who are in this category. The first are people who had been subjected to violence at their home even before the pandemic. Now we know that violence in schools, at homes, have increased throughout the world during these times. Why? A woman or a man or a child may have been with a family member who is violent. Now, when they're always together, this human being who is violent, who can't manage their negative emotions appropriately, has more chance of being violent. So you might be in a situation at home that you might be having a family member who's violent towards you. So you're in a special group who needs some extra assistance to manage this. Then how about those who are taking substances? So if you are in the habit of taking alcohol or tobacco or any other illegal drugs, because you're so wanting this and you're using it and abusing it, the lack of it might have an impact on you. Now, we do know that substance use is not indicated at all. So this is an opportunity for one to really learn other strategies to forever live without these substances. Another group that is especially requiring of our attention are older people. We know that many older people live by themselves. They might have a maid or somebody to look after them. They live in an elder's home. The children may be living in a different house. The children can't visit them. They don't know how to get their groceries. So they are more vulnerable to having a psychological impact. And how about daily wage earners? People who are maybe coconut pluckers, who are selling bulat on the wayside, who might come and mow our garden, or who might be the daily wage maid. So all of them may be without any jobs. They may be very anxious as to how to feed themselves and their children. This financial and economic anxiety can have an impact on the psychological well-being. Then business owners, we know that even large businesses are having a very, very difficult time. While we know that certain businesses, like say Zoom, which we are using now, I heard that Amazon, they're doing very well. So in any challenging situations, certain businesses will boom because that's the necessity, while other businesses will really crash. So those business owners whose businesses cannot operate in these circumstances will also have a large psychological impact. Then there's also another group of human beings who will feel this pandemic more than others. And it is those people who have experienced a previous trauma. Now, for example, I was talking to a person known to me who was exposed to the 2004 tsunami. So what he told me was he found himself on top of a tree when the tsunami waters were coming, and he hung to his dear life on this tree, trying not to suffocate in the waters. Then he was also exposed to the central bank bombing in the 90s. So two significant traumas he had in his life. Now he finds himself in this pandemic. And he said the memories of the central bank bombing and the tsunami experience keeps coming to his mind, and he feels breathless and anxious, not because he had got the coronavirus, but the trauma got reactivated. So sometimes if you had gone through a traumatic event, natural disaster or personal trauma, those memories can also come. Now, why we are coming today to meet is because we want to offer you psychological strategies so that you can overcome these signs that I have spoken about. Many of our mind states can be managed and soothed if we have the correct strategies in our mind. Sometimes doing our own self-help strategies might not be sufficient. Then we need to refer on to psychological professional services, for which also I will give you some context. So therefore, my talk today to youth is on three things. Firstly is how can you help yourself to manage your mind during this time until we overcome this challenging time. Secondly, to share strategies with you that you can share to others. So don't keep it only with yourself. Help people around you, share this with you. You're going to upload this on the internet, share it with others so that their minds will also be appeased. Thirdly, if you or somebody who knows you feel that you need extra help, you need psychological, professional help, I will also give you some context that you can go to. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you about these strategies one at a time, and there are about 16 strategies. Okay, it's not really ordered in really strictly ordered in importance level, but I've tried to order it in a coherent way. Firstly, is let us look at life as spotted with challenges and opportunities. Now, most human beings don't want to look at challenges. Now, challenges are like pandemic, isn't it? A challenge. The 2004 tsunami was a challenge. A terrorist attack is a challenge. We don't want to consider challenge as a part of life, as a normal human tendency for most people. You only want to want good times, but that's not the way it is. So first of all, we have to realize the inevitable truth of life, whether you like it or not, is that human life is really spotted with challenges as well as good times. So for example, I like this analogy about a surfer who, most of you would have seen surfers who go on the ocean, and one who's really clever, they love these big waves. So they wait for a big wave to kind of put their surfboard and go with it. So those are the up times and the good times. But then the surfer knows just as the wave is big, there's also a dip down. He has to be very skilled in order to go down too. And if he go down well, he'll be safe and he can climb another big wave. Life is like that. So you need to be a great surfer to be able to go up the wave and then to come down, because there will be also an upcoming. So first of all, reset your attitude to what life is like. Life is full of challenges as well as good times. That is the inevitability of life. For example, I was reading an article about the flu pandemic the world had in 1980 to 1919, where it hugely impacted the world. You can read about it. So that was 100 years ago. So these pandemics is not only this one, it has been there as a part of the world system. So realize is the first strategy. And the second strategy is living in the present moment. Now this is, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of this strategy in your personal life. If there's one out of the many strategies I'm going to give you, this I would think is red star or gold star or platinum star. So what is living in the present moment? Living in the present moment is not living in the future, not living in the past, and not living in the fantasy world. It means living here. So for example, while I'm talking to you in the comfort of my home, I'm very much aware that I'm only seeing a PowerPoint slide. I'm also aware from the corner of my eye, I can see my little screen with my picture, and I can see Raghu's picture on the right. I'm also aware that there's sunlight coming from the right side, on my right side. I'm also aware there's a light on top of my head. This is my present moment. I'm living in it. Are you living in it? Or while listening to this talk, are you meddling with your phone? Are you thinking about your boyfriend or girlfriend? Are you thinking, what time is this finishing? Or are you thinking, I hope this goes on for long and long? If you are like that, you're not living in the present moment. Present moment means keeping your mind in the activity that you're doing, very fully, with full comprehension. When you live in the present moment, the psychological benefit is that you would not tolerate anxiety, worry, anger, despair, isolation, all sorts of unhealthy emotions. Right? The present moment protects our mind, because when you're very much with the activity that you're doing, it's like a well sheltered house. So if you have a house with a great roof, whatever thunderstorm that comes won't come into your house. Present moment awareness is like a well thatched roof. Anxiety, worry, anger won't seep into you. So keep your mind into whatever activity you're doing. If you're brushing your teeth, know that you're brushing your teeth. If you're helping your mother to cut the carrots, know that you're cutting the carrots and cut it mindfully. If you're if you're doing a small home garden and about to put some seeds of tomato to grow, keep your mind there. And whenever your mind wanders to a future event or something that happened in the past or to a fantasy, very gently bring your mind back to planting those tomato seeds, cutting that carrot, or brushing that teeth. For some people living in the present moment, we've exposed to them the plethora of negative emotions that they're having. They might see anger much more clearly. They might see anxiety more clearly. They might feel isolation more clearly. And they might feel overcome by those emotions. There's a strategy for that also, which is whenever you feel a huge emotions coming up in your mind while you're keeping your mind in the present moment, identify your feeling by a word. So for example, you are doing an online assignment, a class assignment, and you're not used to this. You're more used to doing it physically with friends in a study group, but now you have to do it online. You might keep your mind in the present moment with the online assessment, but you can see this whole frustration, building up. Term that word frustration. You might feel anger stemming. Just label it. There are very powerful, difficult emotions surges up in you when you're living in the present moment. It will be very obvious to you. The way to manage that emotion from not overtaking you is to identify it to yourself. Anxiety, frustration, sadness, anger. The moment you look straight at your emotion and identify for what it is, it has less hold over you. That's one way of managing difficult emotions while living in the present moment. Another great benefit of living in the present moment is that the present moment gives you a window to decide whether whatever you're trying to do, whether it would have a negative impact or not. Now, many people tell us, oh, I should not have had that anger outburst at my mother. She only asked me if I want a cup of tea and I just told her off. And actually, I was going to tell off my friend, but I told off my mother instead. And you regret. There's a lot of guilt and repentance in our minds because of things that we wish we hadn't done. Now, that can be overcome greatly if we practice present moment awareness. Why is that? When you live in the present moment, what happens is you get a slight window of opportunity to decide whether what your mind is telling you to do would lead to worse consequences the next moment. And in that window, you can decide, shall I do it or not? For example, say your father has been telling you to do studies and you don't feel like applying yourself to it. You just feel like gaming and doing all sorts of things. So you are now starting to practice living in the present moment. So you're always bringing your mind to whatever is being said, and now you're very clearly listening to what your father is telling you to study. At that moment, you get a thought into your head that I'm going to tell off my father. But because you have been practicing living in the present moment, you catch that thought very clearly and you get a window of opportunity to decide, am I going to tell off my father or am I going to take my frustration, keep it within myself and not tell off my father? Because you decided the second one, you will stop having a worse moment for yourself. So therefore, the second opportunity or the strategy of living in the present moment, the benefit is that you will not make your next moment worse. A third benefit of living in the present moment is a very beautiful one, Now, many of us only like to have healthy emotions or happy emotions. We love joy, we like excitement, we like love. Those are the emotions we tolerate, we embrace, we befriend. We don't want to have anger and frustration and sadness and envy. We don't want to embrace those. We want to shun it. However, when you start living in the present moment, you first start tolerating all sorts of emotions. The positive ones like love, joy, excitement, as well as the negative ones like anger, frustration, sadness. When we start tolerating both these categories of emotions, our mind becomes strong. Because why? We are not choosing one against the other. We are tolerating whatever that arises in us. When we keep on tolerating all emotions that arises in us, sometime our mind starts embracing this emotion. And finally, our mind starts befriending our negative emotions. Because anyway, we have befriended the positive ones, we start befriending the negative ones also. We become friends with our anger. We become well acquainted with our jealousy. We become okay with our sadness. So by that, we don't shun any emotions. We keep everything with us. And when you befriend your difficult emotions, you actually start developing compassion for yourself. One of my known people told me last week, she shared a story with me. She said that she had a huge conflict with her partner. Living in the same house for 4 weeks was difficult, and they had a huge anger outburst. And she said she had a lot of anger towards her partner, a lot of distress, difficulty, a lot of bottled up emotions start coming up into her. But she had been practicing living in the present moment for several months. So what she did was, when she was discussing with her partner how he had treated her so badly for so many years, she was aware of all the emotions that she felt towards the partner, but she didn't tell him off based on it. Instead, she kept it within herself and spoke very wisely and kindly to the partner. When she kept on doing that, which is tolerating and embracing and befriending her difficult emotions, she suddenly said she felt a great sense of compassion and kindness towards herself, because she felt that she handled the situation so well, and she actually started liking herself, which was a great positive emotion she had never felt in her life. And with this self-compassion she had for herself, her compassion towards her partner, whom she was expressing her views to, also increased. So all in all, this entire dialogue that she had with her partner, where they had to discuss some truths about their relationship, ended very well. Why? Because she didn't act on her negative emotions. She kept it with herself, tolerating it, living in the present moment, which led to compassion towards herself and her partner, which ultimately the entire situation unfolded very well. So living the present moment is a very powerful strategy. If you're interested more on it, there's a lot of material on how to live in the present moment. There are many apps, applications on how to live in the present moment. I urge you to go on the internet, search for those apps, search for those documents, and to include that as part of the strategy. Then I'd like to also talk to you about a third strategy, which is gratitude. Now, gratitude in every religion is a very venerated human virtue, isn't it? It's a rare virtue. Many of us are not too grateful. But if you look at this pandemic, I must say, I don't know about you, but I'm sure you agree with me. I feel extremely grateful to the doctors, to the nurses, to the people who are in the hospital setup, the administrators of the various countries who are trying to get everything sorted out, the various fruit and the vegetable trucks, the fish trucks, the coconut trucks that come down our roads, for us to buy stuff that is useful for us. The garbage cleaners who put their hands inside the garbage bin so that our garbage is collected. Surely in their minds also they are concerned, can I get the virus because of this? I feel if you acknowledge with gratitude what everybody is doing for us, while we sit in the comfort of our homes, maybe our homes has its own set of issues. Maybe our family members aren't the greatest human beings on earth. Maybe I'm not the greatest human being on earth. We always point the fingers at others. However, you have a laptop, you have a smartphone to connect and listen to this. There are so many people out there who's fighting on behalf of us. It's not easy to be in the front line, but they're doing the work. So take to your mind with gratitude all the people out there who's making things happen so that the earth will function and go on. Acknowledge them. And when you put your mind to those people who's trying to ensure that we are okay, we have a sense of gratitude. Gratitude is a great healer. It heals them and heals us. And the other positive thing about gratitude is every time you remind yourself about the armed forces, the police, the doctors, the vegetable vendors, the various administrators doing their part 24/7, we then take our own measures so that we work together. We share the responsibility of healing our planet. By that, you become more concerned about hand washing. You are more concerned about keeping that 1 meter distance when you're talking to somebody outside of your house. You become more conscious about not touching your face. And most importantly, you realize that even if you have a curfew pass, you're not going to misuse it. That when the curfew lifts, you're not going to rush around like chickens without a head, going here and there. That's not why the curfew is going to be lifted, isn't it? Curfew is going to be lifted just to keep the economic activity going, not for us to go visiting. So all these protective measures which the health authorities, administrators are telling us can be truly put into action when we develop gratitude towards the frontline staff who is doing all of this to keep us safe. So gratitude is a third strategy that will protect our minds. A fourth strategy linked with gratitude is counting our blessings. Now, counting our blessings has been indicated over centuries for human beings, but we rarely do that, do we? I mean, many of us are so intent on not counting our blessings. Oh, I don't have this. Or we had an electricity cut for 2 hours. Or the vegetable truck didn't come down our lane today. My mother is always telling me to study. Or why do I have to do online work? So all the time looking at whatever is negative in our life. Now, whenever we emphasize negativities or what we don't have, the joy in our life goes away. It has. I don't have to say it as a psychologist. You yourself know it, isn't it? So therefore, one way of really bringing joy and happiness and content into our life is to consciously count your blessings. Consciously count your blessings. So, for example, if you're thinking, why do I have to be stuck in an apartment with 3 of my family members now for 1 more month and then another 1 more month? Your mind is now going towards what shouldn't be. I wish it wasn't like that. Quickly catch your mind when your mind is dipping to those lows. If you have been practicing living in the present moment, the second strategy I spoke to you about, you would be very quickly to catch those negative dips in your mind. Whenever the mind dips, bring your mind back to reminding yourself what are the blessings you have. You have a house. You have been enrolled in a university course. You have parents who may be nagging you but still give you food. There are so many who don't have that. You can actually go online and complete a great portion of your degree, while many children who are living in the outskirts, who are living in the rural, don't have any of those options. So count your blessings. Another very key way in which you can really count your blessings is to keep a gratitude journal. Gratitude journal is something that we do in the evening, in the night, before we go to sleep. It's a journal, it's like a diary. It's always better written than on a smartphone typing, but if you're a smartphone kind of person and don't really like to write, you can do it on a smartphone. whatever it is, every night before you go to sleep, count 3 things in that day that you're grateful for. Not 4 things, not 2 things, 3 things. So it doesn't have to be huge things because huge things doesn't happen every day. No? It could be lovely 2 chocolate biscuits I had in the morning. I'm saying that because I had it before I came here and I really enjoyed it. So little things. Or the fact that that beautiful parrot that came and ate the pepper that I had kept outside, seeing that bird, it brought me joy to my mind. And the first carrot curry I made in the evening and the family ate it. It was a joy. So those are 3 things that you're grateful in your life that day. Just write it. Do it for 1 month. When you go to sleep with a positive sense of blessing in your life in the form of the gratitude journal, you get up in the morning with a positive frame of mind. If you get up in the morning with a positive frame of mind, without being grumpy, then your day also becomes better. Your life becomes better. So gratitude journal is another technique that you could utilize. Humor. I mean, I think Sri Lankans have like amazing sense of humor. I mean, most of you are on Facebook. I only have a Facebook account. That's the only social media platform I work in. And that's amazing number of jokes in any situation. The moment something happened, next morning you have all sorts of jokes that are really funny. And humor, therefore, is an excellent protector of our mind, really. You might think that how can I be humorous? There's so many things happening in the world. But in psychological terms, the psychologists say humor is a great softener of the mind. Now, let me give you an analogy. Say you have a huge mound of tough clay, like soil, in your garden, maybe a dwelling place of a snake long time ago. It looks really unsightly. You want to take it out, but it just won't, you can't. It's sort of tough. So you get a brain wave. You put water to it, the clay, the soil, and it immediately gets softened and you can remove it. Humor is like that. Humor is a great softener to the mind. So if you are in the habit of watching these sad movies, listening to all sorts of depressive songs, only reading violent books, and reading all sorts of violent movies and adventures where everybody's killing each other from day 1 to day last, I seriously appeal to you to consider reducing those kind of entertainment sources. Get into more light-hearted comedies. Be with friends who are humorous. Maybe make even a collage of humorous stuff. I have a whole bunch of those, those humorous things that people post on Facebook and comes on WhatsApp. I have a whole bunch of it, which I keep with myself, and I sometimes look at it. Sometimes from last year I have, and I look at it, and it's so funny. It softens my mind. So therefore, this strategy is about making a conscious decision not to get engaged with excessively sad, sorrowful, angry, violent, adventurous songs, movies, games, teledramas, books. Rather, get into humorous, light-hearted, soft things so that your mind is buffered during this challenging time. Spirituality is a great booster to the mind. Now, I know that not everybody will be rushing to the temple or to the kovil or to the church or to the mosque when challenges hit, because there are individual variations. But even if you're not a hugely spiritual person, you haven't been, for many people at a challenging time, their religious upbringing, their religious inclination has been a great source of support. So, what about considering doing a bit of prayers, reciting Gatha, or whatever practice that you can do at home? Maybe when you were at school, you had done some praying or meditation that helped you, maybe 10, 15 years ago. Can we revisit that? Reading spiritual books, because many of these spiritual books give us tips and strategies of how we can view life, the attitude we should have during these challenging times. It's very helpful. So therefore, consider getting involved in spirituality. This doesn't mean that morning till night you're doing these activities, but maybe at the end of the day, before you do your gratitude journal, after you do your gratitude journal, just to stabilize yourself in a larger belief that you have would be very soothing for you. Think altruism. Now, altruism is about the ability to look into the needs of others, isn't it? That's what we mean by altruism. Now, there's a lovely story that somebody was saying about this monk was saying, I heard in a sermon months ago. He said that he had got in an envelope 5 rupee, 10 rupees or 20 rupees note from somebody, a lady, and she had put her address. It was not a big amount. I think I had a 10 rupee note. There a 10 rupee note also. And monk was quite interested. That 10 rupee note with, she's beautifully tapered and send this envelope. And there was a phone number and an address. So he called this lady and asked her, well, I told her that I got your donation of 10 rupees. And then she said, oh, I'm so happy, because she's like a sweep ticket seller. So with every sweep ticket she sells, she gets 1 rupee. It's a profit. So for her to collect this 10 rupees, it's not easy. So because her already existing fund is very small. So her 10 rupees would be like giving 100,000 rupees for somebody else. So therefore, why I gave you this story is that we don't need to have a lot to give to others. It could be something really small, because we do know that many people will go through a huge economic, societal issues because of the loss of jobs. Businesses are not doing too well. Daily wage owners can't get any jobs. So people will get desperate because they need to feed themselves, they need to feed their children, things like that. So if we have a little bit of extra cash, it doesn't have to be millions or lakhs in the bank account. It could be like the sweep ticket lady who had a little bit anyway for herself, but she also wanted to give to others. That's true altruism. So give to another person. There may be somebody around your house, where down your lane, a small house, where you know that they're very difficult because the woman is a maid, the man is a coconut plucker. They don't have a job now, they're inside the house. And you have a little bit of extra cash. Maybe you can offer it to them. Maybe you can buy some vegetables for them. It doesn't have to be. It can even 2 or 3 brinjals, 2 carrots. But do it anyway. It will lighten your heart and certainly lighten the hearts of another person. In fact, a friend of mine was telling me this situation where when this whole pandemic thing happened about a month ago in our country, she was feeling really low. And she wanted to get out of the house and she couldn't and all that. So I was just talking to her about various strategies and I told her about this one. And that conversation ended. Anyway, 2 weeks down the line, I was talking to her again. She said, Priyanjali, I feel so much better now. I said, well, what did you do? I was interested. And she says, do you know, she's an older person. She has a job. She has some money. So she had made sure that she would give extra cash to the persons who come to collect the garbage. Then people who live down their road, whom she knew was in dire difficulty. And every time she gave, and she connected with those people, she clearly saw that those people were happy, but she was happy. So altruism is a great booster to our mind, being able to look into the needs of others, even when we have our own needs. So try it. Being connected. Now, being connected is absolutely essential. And you might wonder, how can she say to be connected when we are supposed to be distancing? Now, this word social distancing is actually rather incorrect. And now the actual word is physical distancing. Because we want social support, because social support is it's a wonderful protector of our mind. That's why we all love to have friends. Even doing this Zoom conference, we are living in our own separate dwellings, but we are all connected, isn't it, virtually? And it's a wonderful thing. So it is physical distancing. We need physical distancing to protect ourselves from the virus and the whole world from the virus, but we still can be connected. Maybe not the best way we want to, but in the circumstances, social support, social connection is important. So, because we can't meet people physically, we can connect via other means. So, calling, texting friends, including those who are overseas, to see how they are. So what I try to do is, I try to call somebody once a day. So obviously it's not necessarily my own immediate family. Most of the time I try to call and connect people whom I haven't been in touch with before the pandemic. People who I wanted to, but I couldn't. So, and some of these people are my aunts whom I had known when I was younger, who were, who were good to me, and some of them may not have been that good to me, doesn't matter. But I call them just to see how they are, especially the older people. And they feel good, I feel good to be connected. Now, as a young person, you might wonder, well, I mean, I want to meet up with my friends and I can't, it's so boring. Well, how about having a virtual meetup? People I've seen, they have virtual dinner parties. In fact, a friend of mine who lives in the UK, he was saying, because I think Zoom gives a 40-minute free time slot. So what they do is they all have dinner in their own houses with the Zoom on. So they're actually meeting over dinner, but actually it's on Zoom in their own houses. So after 40 minutes finishes, another person initiates. So they have this virtual dinner. Some people have virtual coffee meetings, virtual tea meetings. So friends can get together on something like a platform like Zoom, and you have your own coffee at home, but you connect. So those are novel ways of connecting with each other. Create a WhatsApp group to stay in touch. I have a few WhatsApp groups that I stay in touch with, and I must say that during this 1 month that we were here, I've really got close to people whom I would never have had the opportunity of really getting to know and getting close to. And I believe that after this situation finishes, my bonds with those people will be much greater. So creating WhatsApp groups. However, when you create these social media platforms to keep connected, post uplifting messages. Now, sometimes we see people who are putting really distressing messages, racial remarks, pointing fingers at this person, that person. When you have a lot of those kind of messages circulating, though it's one's right to put in whatever they want, it has a very dampening effect on people who are viewing it. So what we want to do is uplift people, to support people, to encourage people and our friends to tide over this time. So post uplifting messages. Just as being connected is really important, our privacy too is important, isn't it? I mean, we can't always be talking to people, chatting people, texting, WhatsApping, though some people are in the habit of that. However, having your own time to yourself is also really, really important. Now, depending on your life dwelling place, you might want to see whether there's a space at your home, if possible, to yourself for a few minutes. Now, so maybe there is a place in the balcony that you can stay and just contemplate for a few minutes, just to be by yourself, so that while you are staying connected to your family and friends, you also have some privacy too, to contemplate and be by yourself. This is really important if you're living in a very closed environment, like an apartment where there are several people inside the house, where you need some time for yourself. So try to see that that kind of opportunity is there. Another strategy is have some certainty. Now, we know that these times are somewhat uncertain for us. Indeed. Life is anyway uncertain, but we have tried to make it certain. But this pandemic thing is showing us very clearly that life is not really certain, isn't it? But human beings want to have some certainty to feel good. So, one way of boosting our mental health and psychological well-being is to have tasks that you can complete, which means that don't set huge expectations on yourself. Like sometimes people say, oh, during this pandemic time, you have to learn a new language. You have to design a whole new app by the end of it. Or you need to learn this new skill. What have you done? What have you done? That kind of expectation, goal behavior might be suitable for the person who's saying it. So that person can do it. But if you feel inundated by these huge goals that other people are setting on you, it's okay not to buy into it, because this is not an easy time for many of us. So don't set huge expectations on yourself. Rather, set some expectation or some goal that you can easily complete. Like, for example, in my case, I was not the best of cooks. I had no interest in cooking, but I managed all these years. And then, of course, with this situation, I had no choice. I can't depend on anybody to cook. I have to cook for the family. So then I thought, okay, fine, I won't be doing this master chef kind of cuisine. But I will do one or two curries in the present moment, doing it with my full awareness, and I will do it as best as I can. And when I set that very moderate goal for myself, I really started realizing I actually enjoy cooking. I look forward to it, and the food doesn't taste bad. So, like that, put a goal that you can complete, and they don't have to be big ones. Therefore, have some certainty in your life. Another really important strategy is to maintain your daily routine. Now, for many people, they work from home, you are studying from home, and because you don't have to get up and go and go to public transport, go to university. What happens is that many of us tend to get up later and later in the day and sleep later and later. So your entire cycle kind of changes. You might be going to sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and getting up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The entire cycle has changed. This is not good business. You need to have a routine that you keep every day. If you want, you can make some deviation in the weekend, though of course now it seems that the weekends and weekdays are all merging into one. But in your mind, keep that distinction. So Monday to Friday is like a regular day, because it will one day be regular, isn't it? So despite the closure of the university, as you can see from the pictures I have put in this slide, keep to the same waking times, please. Wake up at the usual time you wake up, whether it's at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. You used to wake up before. Of course, you won't be going to university, but you will have online learning. Now, online learning for some students could be a huge novelty, isn't it? As a teacher also, I was very much interested in actual teaching, really seeing students. And we all have to go on to online teaching. This is an online workshop I'm doing for you all. And I don't see any one of you. I'm actually literally talking to myself. But I found out that after some time, I actually enjoyed it because it also has its benefits. I don't need to get hugely dressed up. I don't need to get into my car, stay in the traffic, drive all the way, get down, get into the lift, go there. So all that time is saved. So therefore, try to look at your online learning as a novelty, as an experiment, as an opportunity to count its blessings. Okay? So therefore, get up at the regular waking times that you did before the pandemic. Get on to your online learning activities. Don't keep it in the night time, but if you're a total night bird who likes to do learning and always been like that, certainly do that. But keep your daily activities going. Include exercise in it. Exercise is so important. A physically healthy body has a great impact on the mental health. Now you might wonder, how can I exercise? You can't get out of the house. Some of you might have a small plot outside, like a little garden outside, like that 7 feet that we have to have when you make a house. You can walk there just half an hour until you break into a sweat. 5 to 6 days a week. It might seem boring. It may be more boring than going out to a public park, but these are different times, isn't it? The YouTube has super exercise programs, whether it's yoga or Pilates or using your own body to have a strength training program. Massive array of exercise programs. How about if you may be having an old exercise machine or a new exercise machine at home which you never use? Most people buy an exercise machine and they hang their clothes in it. But now it's time to clean off the clothes and get on to it. Exercise is so important. 5 to 6 days a week, at least half an hour, unless you have other physical health complications. Eating healthy. Now, many times people, when they are in this kind of artificial situation, initially they might start off eating healthy, like paripu and green gram and kadala and moong atta, all sorts of healthy stuff. And after some time, they get a little bit of bored by it. Then they are running after tea buns and Kimberley bunnies, and that's the whole day is those kind of foods. So be very careful not to get yourself into that trap. Having a bit of a treat every day is fine. We all need it. I told you about my 2 chocolate biscuits before I came and sat here. However, consciously having fruit and vegetables, though the array is limited now. It may not be the fruit that you like, the vegetables that you like, not be the number and quantity that you like. But please ensure you will have it every day anyway with whatever is available. Because your body, if it is strong, if it is healthy, when the virus comes along, you'll be able to withstand it much better. And of course, finally, sleeping. Good 7 to 8 hours a day, good sleep, and of course, the best hours of sleep is 10 p.m. onwards. That's where the brain and the body get synchronized into sleep. So really, skipping 10 p.m. and going to sleep at early hours in the morning, in the long run, would not be beneficial. So therefore, in summary, under this point, what I want to tell you is maintain your pre-pandemic routine. Don't start changing your sleeping hours. Don't go to sleep early hours in the morning and get up in the afternoon. Get involved in exercise, eat healthy, and enjoy the novelty of online learning, though it is novel to you and to me as teachers and students. Another strategy which is really important is limit your exposure to known sources of information. A lot of people claim so many things. I mean, there were so many stories, wasn't there, that people are spraying certain things from helicopters to this vaccine, that food, this thing, that thing. There's a lot of people, if you, in the morning, when you get up in the morning and you open your WhatsApp, all these people send you messages with good intentions. They're not trying to mess up your life, but they just pass on information just because they get this information from somebody else. And then what do? We read it and then we pass it on to 20 people and everybody's in a panic. And ultimately you found out that it's wrong information. So really, as responsible young adults, as youth, you have a great responsibility to just to check whether the information that you get is true or not. So what I do now is, I know if somebody sends me some odd looking bit of information, suddenly they say if you eat, I don't know, shoes, the coronavirus won't come your way. There was no such thing. But if you get something like that, I usually ask that person, could you give me the source from where you got this information? Usually it's a forward WhatsApp message from somebody else. And they don't know who forwarded. They say they don't know. Then if I'm interested, I might do a little bit of a search myself on the internet. And when I do search for information on anything, including the coronavirus, particularly on health related, I go to well-sourced information, evidence-based. Ministry of Health of Sri Lanka, our epidemiology unit, the Sri Lanka Medical Association, the World Health Organizations, reputed universities, where there are scientists, researchers, health professionals who know about the subject, who make claims based on experiments and research, not ad hoc ones. So therefore, really important, please do not be a victim of fake news propaganda and don't spread that fake news. If you protect your mind, if you protect the society's mind. But sharing information is another strategy that we really need to do too. Like for example, the other day we had a supermarket delivery that came our way, and I read that it's always better to give a credit card rather than giving cash to the delivery person. It's good for me, good for him, and for me to insert the card myself into the machine so that I put it, I take it out. So there's nobody touching the credit card. So this young man came very late in the night. I feel very sorry for him, working so many hours just to deliver food to me to eat. So he came along and I greeted him very kindly. And then he said, I didn't know that they had a mobile credit card machine. So I said, shall I give you cash? And fortunately, he said, you can also pay by credit card. I said, that's great, I'll take that. And then I took out my credit card and he was about to touch it. And I said, Puta, why don't I put it into the machine? And he said, okay. And I said, and I explained to him, because if I put it in, you don't have to touch it, then I don't have to disinfect it, you're protected, I'm protected. All the while I'm keeping a minimum of 1 meter distance doing all that. It's quite an effort, really put your credit card at 1 meter distance, but I did it. So I explained to him also the rationale of it. And I told him at the end, whenever you go to houses, check whether they have credit cards before asking for cash. And tell them to put the card into your machine and you don't touch it, and tell them to take it out. So like that, because we have a lot of information like that and some people don't take responsibility on giving information to anybody whom you come across. Whether it's about mask wearing or giving a credit card or disinfecting money or your clothes, keep it for 2 hours out in sunlight, give that information because some people just don't know. And by us giving them information, we'll be actually doing them a great service. Commend. And there's a lot of unfortunate finger pointing, blaming of those people who had not come forward for quarantining, who had not come and reported that they had maybe were overseas, that they had been in contact with people who may be having that virus. They may have been doing it for multiple reasons. And we don't know what those reasons are really, isn't it? So therefore, this finger pointing to people is not a very useful thing to do. Because first of all, when we think, but they say if I point one finger at you, I have 3 fingers pointing at myself, isn't it? And we are also not saintly, so how can we point fingers at another person? And also, that person may be having their own reasons for behaving the way they did. We really don't know. So what is much more useful is whenever somebody does come across and say, well, I may have been exposed to the virus and they go on to quarantine or for self-isolation, we recommend those activities. Don't stigmatize people because they may have had the coronavirus, because anybody can get it. And it is not fair to stigmatize a person just because they have been exposed to the virus and they have got it. We need to embrace them and to commend people who have gone into quarantine, etc. It's a very important thing that we need to do rather than finger pointing, blaming, judging, especially if people post these kind of things on Facebook, Instagram, social media. It can actually make people who may have been exposed to not come forward because the stigma they are producing towards older adults. Now, some of us may be having our aunts, uncles, parents, grandparents in our house who is rearing to go out of the house the moment the curfew lifts. And we do know that older people are more prone to becoming highly destabilized if they get the coronavirus. But these people, our elderly relatives, might be just doesn't want to heed our advice. They just waiting to go. It can be very, very frustrating for the younger people because you're trying to get them to stay indoors, but no, they want to go and talk to the next door neighbor and to that person and this person. I think what I try to do with elderly people is I try to kind of give them the perspective that if everybody doesn't heed the health advice given to us, what is the role model that we are posing to the public? Because we are finger pointing at the next door neighbor and the next door shop owner who is going around the curfew. But wouldn't it be better if we, as a role model, stay indoors and they learn from us? So really, even if an elderly person is stubborn and want to break the health-related advice we have been given, us persistently informing them of what should be done can actually change these older people. So it's really important that we work on their mind because older people are more vulnerable to the condition. Secondly, with older adults, connecting with them is really important. I think I spoke to you about that under connecting. What I try to do is at least, as I told you, once a day, I try to connect with somebody like an older person. It's not always I could do it every day, but at least 3 to 4 times a week, I do connect. With some I WhatsApp if they're overseas, some I give them a call just to check on things. Did you get the groceries? What are you doing? What do you have for breakfast? Our conversation topics maybe also not much because of the generational gap, but I just reach out my hand to them. They feel good, I feel good. So connect with older people because they may be more vulnerable and lonely. Now with children, I do know that being youth, you yourself are not children, and most of you may not be having your children yourself. But I just wanted to include a few things that we could do to help children, because some of you may be having younger sisters, you may be having younger sisters or brothers, you may be having siblings who have children, so you may be like a very young aunt or uncle, or you might be having neighbor children, so how can we help children really in this situation? So just a very quickly I'll go through this point because you may not be a parent yourself. First is that children need to be made aware of the pandemic situation. That is that there is a situation happening on our earth. Of course, you don't have to give them all the details about it's called COVID-19, came in Wuhan, now it's here, now it's there, the epicenter is in New York currently, those kind of things are irrelevant. Just to make them aware that there is a situation happening here. Children require assurance that they will be okay. Adults, including youth, need to give them that assurance that whatever matters, don't make false promises, but just reassure that somebody will be there for them to talk to and to type to at times. Children also require routine. Just as I told you, youth, young students, university students, that you require routine, children also require routine. That's why when there's homeschooling now happening in many of the schools, you start in the morning. You don't do it late night. So just as adults, children also need to have a fixed routine that they go on. It brings certainty to life. Children may have difficulty in regulating their emotions. They might have more anger outbursts. They may be worrying more. They may be sad more. They may be more frustrated. And unlike adults, children might not have ways to manage these emotions because they're still young. They haven't had the opportunity. So therefore, living in the present moment, the technique that I spoke to you about, you can encourage children whom you know to be with their emotions, tolerate their emotions rather than acting. Children also need to get playtime. I see in our neighborhood, children who never came to the playground is now coming and playing every day. It's really nice. It reminds me of when we were young, how we used to play during our school holidays, which children of this generation hadn't the opportunity because they're always going for classes. But now the playtime concept. So it's really important if you have children at home, if you have younger sisters, to encourage them to just play for the fun of playing, not competitive play. Limiting screen time, always gaming, looking at the smartphone of the parent or an adult is not a useful thing at all. We know that people who spend a lot of time on screen has a direct impact on their psychological health. Children should be praised for the good behavior they show at a given time. They should not be physically disciplined. Most of all, it's really important that as adults, including you as youth, be a role model of emotional stability for the children at home. Then we have come to the final little end, nearly the end of our workshop. So consider that this is an opportunity for you to enjoy solitude. Remember, I told you to find a place at home, which is your own private place. Many of us before this pandemic would have complained, oh, life is so rushed. I have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning and do my assignment, get dressed, rush the bus, go to university, do all this, go for another class, do this other degree. Life, what is life? People have been saying things like that. Now, you have been given an opportunity to get out of it because the world has given you that opportunity. So enjoy that solitude. Use it as an opportunity to contemplate, because this opportunity, if you can look at it as an opportunity, is really rare, isn't it? I find it very rare. It gives us an opportunity to really consider what is important to your life. Your career aspirations, which you had pre-pandemic, you might want to reevaluate. Is this a career you want to do? You want to do something else? As this whole earth situation with the pandemic, you change your perspective about things, about the earth, about yourself, about your friends, about your family, about your use this huge bunch of time that you have been given to really look inside of your life and to take some key decisions for yourself. You might never have it again. Finally, few other miscellaneous advice. Breathing, I call it, not myself, I read it somewhere, it's called box breathing. You know, our breathing can become quite shallow if you are feeling very fearful, anxious, and worried. So, box breathing is a kind of a breathing, deep breathing technique that kind of stabilizes our mind. So, what we mean by box breathing is it's like a box is like four sides, right? So, what we do is we try to breathe from below, from the abdomen onwards, because most of us breathe from our chest. It's very shallow kind of a breathe, you know. We just breathe from this onwards. That's shallow. That can contribute to, feelings of anxiety and worsen feelings of anxiety. So we try to reprogram our breathing from deep from the abdomen itself. So what we do is we breathe in from the abdomen for four counts, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we hold that breath for a count of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we let go of that breath, exhalation, at a count of 4. And after exhalation, we stay without a breath for a count of 4. And we continue again on the box breath. You can do it in the morning as you get up from the bed a few times, maybe 5 to 10 times. During a day, just to stabilize yourself, and in the evening when you go to bed. So that way your breathing itself becomes improved, your body gets oxygenated. If you're feeling a little anxious, etc., that can get settled and you will have a general sense of well-being. The second is, of course, washing yourself. Sometimes I come across people who, they get up in the morning, they wear the same clothes afternoon, evening, same thing, they don't wash themselves. The routine is gone. Your own personal hygiene is so important. So getting up in the morning, being a routine, washing yourself, being clean, wearing clean clothes, washing the old ones, that kind of a routine has to be maintained. Avoid risky habits like using alcohol, tobacco, overeating. Maintain discipline of yourself, and which can be helped if you live in the present moment. Because every time you reach out the fridge to eat that second kibble bunnies, if you're in the present moment, the mind tells you, isn't the second one you ate? The first one was 5 minutes ago. You will feel more inclined to close in the fridge. Take a virtual vacation. I have given you some examples in the next slide. Harvard and other main universities in the world, as well as many other professional organizations, are doing free e-courses. Get yourself involved in it. I do at least about 2 to 3. I get involved in listening to about 2 to 3, minimum 2 webinars a week now. It's a great opportunity to really upgrade my skills. And finally, offer something a skill that you have that others don't have. Like, for example, this particular workshop I'm doing is I have this information with me and I want to give it to others. So not only am I doing it for you as participants, we also plan to put it out to the public so that people will get to know things. It boosts me up, it will boost you up. Similarly, you might be knowing maybe origami, maybe taekwondo, maybe making beautiful products out of seashells. You may be having a special skill. Why don't you offer that as a skills sharing opportunity to people that you know through Zoom? It's 40 minutes free. So it's virtual vacations option that you can click on if you're interested in that kind of thing. And finally, I told you that if you feel that the techniques that I've told you need to be worked on further, that you would like to have some more professional input, if you're feeling rather anxious, there are certain things, more things that you could do. Before you talk to these other professional agencies, I will also send you a workbook which a colleague had done from Canada called Managing Uncertainties Workbook. It's quite similar to what I've spoken about. I will give it to your head of your organization, and if you like, you can work through that workbook to help yourself further. If you want to talk to somebody on mental well-being, I've put down various contacts. There are many more others, I'm sure, but these are some of them. So the National Institute of Mental Health has a hotline 1926. There's a free online counseling service by psychology professionals. It's free. It's on all 3 languages, particularly this COVID-19 situation. And you can book an appointment through this Facebook site. There are also other non-governmental organizations. So for example, Women in Need, particularly for gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, domestic violence. The hotline is there. Sumithro, it's telephone line from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily on general mental health issues. CCC hotline, that's there. National Child Protection Authority if it's child-related issues. So that brings us to the end of my PowerPoint slides. I'm supposed to do this talk for 1 hour. If there's any questions and if there's time, I'll be very happy to answer. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best. I'm so glad that you connected today. That means for you, your life and your mental health have placed importance in it. So just as you invested your time in this workshop, please look at these strategies, revisit these strategies to be up on the website, and use at least 3 strategies, if not all. 3 strategies that is closest to you to uplift your life and share it with other people also. Thank you very much.